Alright, so we came up over that. Peek our heads over. This is just a drop off right there, all the way down to that glacier. So the first thing I did was I wanted to make sure my already existing system was running good. And so I knew that my radiator was old. First of all, I had to replace my water pump. So I put a new water pump in there, and while I did that, I put a new radiator in there as well. I have a new thermostat in there. I replaced my upper hose, I replaced the lower hose. So anything that way was good. I knew my cooling system was in good running condition, and that was probably as best as it was gonna run. I also, later on, I didn't do it at that time, but later on, and it made a really big difference, I added replacing the clutch fan. The research that I did looking into Jeeps and cooling, it seems like a lot of these Jeeps, especially these DJs, have cooling issues, right? When you get in, and I noticed it, this thing never had any issues in a perfectly stock form if you were 90 or lower. And once you started getting into like the 90-degree temperature, and especially when you hit like 100, like we do down here in southern Utah in a few days, especially in St. George, you're almost always at 100. It just does not quite keep up with what it needs to be. I wouldn't say it overheats all the time, but it's running warmer and it doesn't like it. So a few of the reasons I think that contribute to that are gonna be, if you just look at this particular Jeep has the V8 motor in it, and there's not a lot of space in there. Once you shut that hood, it's pretty compact. There's not a lot of places for heat to get out of, right? That's just, it's a compact space, and you've dropped a big old motor in there. Secondly, if you look at the grill up here, I mean, it works, it does the job, but it's not like a huge, massive opening for that to cool your radiator down. And your radiator's here, right? Like, this is the radiator. Here's that. And in front of that, you have your transmission cooling, you have your AC cooling, and then it finally hits the actual radiator to cool the engine down. So, to me, I mean, that right there just tells me, okay, it's already fighting these other issues. And it doesn't have an electric fan. This is a clutch fan system. No electric fan at all to back it up. So, that right there are kind of the issues, I think. And then, you know, you throw in the fact that it's a 28-year-old Jeep. Yada, 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 right? So one of the things I did was I replaced the fan on there. So new clutch fan, right? That and I knew that it helped because I knew that putting a new clutch fan helped it, because after I replaced it, I could actually hear my fan again. When I first started it, and when you really step on the gas, I could actually hear the fan moving air. And this one I never really could. I mean, I kind of could, but that one, it made a huge difference after I replaced the clutch on it. And like I say, this wasn't obviously bad. Like, if you play with it, it kind of feels like it's good still. But again, they're 28 years old. It was just time to put a new fan on it. This one had like almost 200,000 miles on it. So anyway, put a new clutch on there. And then these fans are good fans for the amount of blades they have on them. They do good. But it only had 5 blades on these old Magnum fans. So I decided, well, I looked into one. I got this one it's like a Dorman fan. It's a 6-blade fan, so all it added was one more fan blade. But they said it should add 15 to 20% additional cooling. And so I bolted that on there with the new clutch. And that made a difference. Like I said, I could actually hear the fan working. and moving a lot more air than the old setup ever did. So that was one improvement I did. A more blade fan, an extra blade on my fan. And that wasn't anything crazy expensive. I think it was like 60 bucks, 50 bucks, something like that. Another thing I did was hood vents. So on the background on these, when I installed them, I was not super familiar with hood vents. It was kind of a new idea I was learning about, trying to figure out. And so if you noticed on those Jeep, those ZJs, this era, these years, they made those the limited ones, and they're like the 5.9ers they call them. They had hood vents on them, I noticed, and they put them around these locations pretty dang close to where I put these ones. And so that's why I put these on there. I got ordered those, thought they would look good. Put them on there. Tried to copy exactly what the Limiteds did on their hoods. I think they made a difference. I mean, the goal of hood vents is to help air flow. I think, at least that's how I understood it. I think a lot of people, if you're like rock crawling a lot, they put them on, and they'll put them in this spot, and I should have done that. I think that would have been a better spot, because it just lets a lot of the heat out that comes immediately off of the engine, right? Another reason for hood vents, though, is to help the airflow with your fan. So your fan's trying to suck air right through here, through these vents, get it through your radiator, and now it needs somewhere to push it out to continue that flow, and hood vents help with that. And so I thought, hey, if the stock limited ones put hood vents here, it's got to be helpful, so I put these on here. And I think it does help. Made it a little, gave it, you can actually, you'll feel air coming out of them, so they're doing their job. You can feel the heat come out. But like I say, I do think it would have been better to put bigger vents on, because these vents really aren't that big. And put them more right here. I think more of my heat gets trapped right there, because that's kind of the high part of the hood, and obviously that's where the heat's gonna go, right? So I think I would, if I were to redo it, I'd put bigger ones, and I'd put them right there. As you can see, it's 107. And that's my temperature at the moment. Yeah. And we're just sitting here waiting for my wife, so. Anyway, give you an idea of, that's probably as good as it's gonna get for sitting here idling when it's 107 degrees outside. So, with a mechanical fan.